people. Welcome once again to Capital City Chris in the house. This is the second show, and hopefully we will be recording live in the studio next month in June. Well, you know what's going on with that crazy governor. She got everything shut down. I would just like to say that she's making it something that is not. COVID C-19 corona is not the real problem. It is the symptom of a much bigger problem that's been happening over 50 years now. Senator Philip Hart and Emmanuel Seller passed the Hart-Feller Act in 1965 that they did for the New World Order of the United Nations that overthrew the United States Constitution immigration that requires local control by the state and the citizens of the state. Like the jobs, Red Cross, whatever, as long as you're in a sovereign state. And before that time, we never heard of a lot of diseases. Well, because they cured polio and tuberculosis. Kids didn't even get the measles. And then once Senator Philip Hart of Michigan, he was the conscience of the Senate. He was the one who impressed it on them to violate the Constitution and Congress take over immigration. And they were powerful because, the Democrats run the country almost 50 years. And the Supreme Court of that time let them get away with it. The reason it's so important is that's how the virus travels. It cannot go buy a plane ticket. It cannot get a reservation on a cruise. It has to be brought within the body of some diseased person. And this is why we protested congressional and immigration by the United States, because they want to bring thousands of people at once and didn't know anything about them. You see, in the Constitution, they have to come locally through the state, and the states didn't fool around. Everybody got vetted 3 or 4 or maybe more within a year's time. Everybody had to go to the doctor, to make sure you didn't have anything growing that didn't belong there, and so they stopped doing that, and as a result, 5 years or so, less than 5 years after the federal government and Congress took over immigration, that was when diseases started. We never heard of any HIV, AID, Ebola, the alphabet, STD, never heard of it. They brought all that stuff here with the people who were diseased. And we all knew they were diseased, but there was nothing we could do to stop Congress from doing that. Then you got Gretchen, she's got help from people like Rashida Tlaib. She went around now spreading some mess about they use hotspots in Corona as code for African Americans. There's a lot of people like her, other Democrats, who are trying to help her proliferate this mess instead of finding ways to lessen it. But the only thing I can say about Rashida Tlaib is if you watch my April show of 2019, you will see about her problem. She's a Muslim, and they're telling you, statistics show you that 70% of Muslims are from incest. Sometimes it could be fifth generation incest. Well, the scientists call that a disease. So the Muslims were born diseases while they went around here, Rashida, trying to talk about African Americans and the coronavirus, because you got to look at this. Over in Russia, ain't no black people, but there's still a lot of corona. So you got to watch how Gretchen Whitmer is trying to play you on this incident about all these numbers that she come up with and can't back them up. She says she saved 3,500 people. She can't prove it. And I think they need to put a list out of all the hospitals and how many people have died in each hospital with a last name. Now, what we're going to do now, we're going to roll a clip from Dr. Ben Carson. He's on Trump's coronavirus team. Listen to what he's telling you. He's saying this whole thing is made up and it's artificial numbers and half the stuff here in the economics. He says all a bunch of crap. So roll that clip.
Unemployment hit a record high 14.7%, with more than 20 million jobs lost in April. It's a hit the country expected, of course, and on Fox and Friends yesterday, President Trump says he's optimistic we will bounce back quickly.
We had the strongest economy in the history of the world, the strongest economy we've ever had, and we had to close it, which is artificial. We artificially closed it. Those jobs will all be back, and they'll be back very soon. And next year, we're going to have a phenomenal year.
So what are the next steps to jumpstart the economy? We have the best person to answer that question right now. Joining us now, the chair of the President's Revitalization Council, HUD Secretary, Dr. Ben Carson. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for being on the program. You've got a big
pleasure.
Absolutely, friend of the show. If you have a big job on your hands, you had a meeting yesterday about it. What is top of mind for you as you tackle this task of revitalizing our economic engine?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important to point out that, this economic crisis that we're experiencing right now was intentional, and it was on the back of an extraordinarily strong economy.
Yes.
In 2008, it was just the opposite. We had a very weak economy. So this is a different situation altogether. And it's very important that we not allow that economic infrastructure to be destroyed so that we can rapidly get back on that train again. So what we want to do is make sure that we preserve, particularly the small businesses. The small businesses are the backbone of the economy of this country. They employ the vast majority of Americans. And the longer, we stay shuttered, the more of those small businesses will die. So on the forefront of what we're thinking about is how do we make sure that we preserve the viability of those small businesses. And a lot of that has to do with using our brains intelligently, not allowing this virus to completely dominate us, but in fact, how do we control it and live with it until we have the ability to completely eliminate it? If we wait until it's all gone before we come out, our economy will be gone.
Absolutely right. Doctor, the president has laid out guidelines and then basically said, hey, states, it's on governors to manage their reopenings. But we see protests across the country, a lot of governors taking it really slow, a lot of big states where cities have cases but counties have none. How can you incentivize governors to actually allow people to responsibly reopen who are ready to do so? Their livelihoods are at stake. They don't want to bail out. They don't want another PPP loan. They want to open their doors because they know they can. Target's wide open. My small retailer isn't. What more can be done to actually make sure that happens?
Well, I think what we have to do is emphasize data and evidence. We have enough places that are opening under various circumstances that we can look at what has happened there, particularly when people are wise enough to follow the guidelines. Make sure that you keep your hands washed, be careful about what you touch, wear the mask where appropriate, continue to maintain the social distancing. When we do those things, it is eminently possible to go back to work, except for the people who are very vulnerable, the elderly people who have significant underlying problems that could interfere with their immune response. Obviously, those people we need to protect, and we need to make sure that the people around them understand the principles. But when that's the case, there's absolutely no reason that we can't go back. And governors, like anybody else, ought to be able to understand data when it's presented.
Absolutely. That is common sense. That is trust in the American people. That's letting people make their own risk calculations. Doctor, I wish you all the best. You have a huge job, with massive consequences for our country. You've got the medical background as well as the economic side. Last word, real quick.
Say we have an enormous team. Virtually all the agencies in the United States government are involved. Everyone's contributing tremendously to this. And this is America, and we're going to get it done.
Amen. Keep the heat on those governors. A lot of them
absolutely
slow rolling. All right, Dr. Ben Carson, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, you heard that. Dr. Carson, who is on Trump's corona team, tell you that this is an intentional economic crisis. Recognize that Whitmer is playing up, coming up with all these fake numbers, and she can't prove none of that mess she's saying. And it's kind of like the worst communist fear tactic ever in America, by using the C-19 threat of death or arrest. Hitler and Khrushchev would be so proud of her and crown her COVID queen of communism. Man, Governor Whitmer, she is the worst governor ever in America. No governor has ever been protested like what's going on with her. And you guys know all about that. So the best thing for us to do now is to go back on what we told you, on what Dr. Carson said about this mess. It's all made up. It's artificial and it's intentional. And let's go back to what we were saying about the Hart-Feller Act, Senator Philip Hart. You see, when they started bringing people about 1,000 and they were living in filthy conditions, this is what started all this stuff. So what we're going to do now, we're going to run a clip to show you what's coming up next. Now, likely, you didn't get this clip on your news feed, because you guys don't get oh God, every time they do something, it'd be on my news feed. So watch this clip now and see what's coming up next. It's the Spanish flu. Oh, and it kills in hours. So watch this clip and see what Dr. Carson's talking about. How would they know about a darn Spanish flu? Y'all wake up. Wake up. How would they know? They got stuff planned on how they going to use that to control you. So we don't know what. So just watch the clip and you make your own decision. Roll it.
This was the Spanish flu of 1918, the deadliest pandemic of the 20th century. Epidemics have infected societies throughout history. Usually epidemics come and go, but some truly stand out for their viciousness. In recent history, there has been no pandemic more devastating than the flu of 1918, sometimes called the Spanish flu or swine flu. It killed about 675,000 in the United States alone. The outbreak came in the midst of World War I, and the flu would actually kill more troops than combat. The flu of 1918 was so deadly it killed more Americans than World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. Yet Spanish flu was horrifying for even more reasons. It was very contagious, and it killed extremely quickly, sometimes in as few as 12 hours. It killed people in the prime of their lives, with the most victims being young, healthy people aged 20 to 40. Additionally, it killed some of its victims in bizarre, brutal ways, completely unlike a typical flu virus. Some symptoms actually closely resemble the plagues, which killed millions in the Middle Ages. But scientists have analyzed the pathogen's genome and verified it was not Black Death, which killed millions in 1918. It was just the flu. This video will cover how the flu began and how it spread across the world, the bizarre symptoms that made it so deadly, and how the flu pushed society to the very brink of collapse. If the epidemic continues its mathematical rate of acceleration, civilization could easily disappear from the face of the earth within a few weeks. Victor Vaughan, Surgeon General of the Army, October 1918. No one can be absolutely sure where the pandemic originated, but there are several theories. In northern France, there was an outbreak of a flu-like disease at a British military base in 1917. The base was located in a swampy area with lots of waterfowl and pigs. New flu epidemics often arise when people have close contact with sick birds or pigs. There was a separate outbreak of respiratory disease among soldiers from Southeast Asia who fought in World War I from 1916 to 1918. Most flus start in Southeast Asia, and some historians argue the soldier may have brought a new virus to Europe. But historian John Barry makes the case in his fascinating book, The Great Influenza, that the flu may have originated on a farm in rural Kansas by jumping from infected pigs to humans. Indeed, the first officially recognized cases of the Spanish flu emerged at a military base in Kansas. The U.S. had just entered World War I, and training and industry had ramped up at a rapid pace as the war machine fired up. But in rural Haskell County, Kansas, a war of another type was quietly beginning. Haskell County was in the grip of a deadly outbreak of what seemed to be a mysterious new disease. People in the community, farmers mostly, may have caught the new disease when a pathogen from sick pigs jumped species and began infecting humans. The new virus, the swine flu, was shockingly contagious and extremely deadly. A local doctor was terrified by the death toll of the new virus and contacted the U.S. Public Health Service for advice. His concern was noted, but nothing else was done. After all, it was a tiny rural backwater. How could it spread far in such a sparsely populated area? Slowly the virus began to die down as it ran out of new people to infect. Perhaps it would have stopped there had the times been different, but 1918 was the perfect breeding ground for a worldwide pandemic. In early 1918, every military base was teeming with young men training for war. The military hurried to build new barracks, hospitals, training areas, and facilities to support the influx of hundreds of thousands of men. Some of these men were volunteers, and some had been drafted. The strange new disease was just dying down in Haskell County when a few young men left there, headed to Camp Funston, Kansas, for training. Camp Funston, located at modern-day Fort Riley, was already over capacity, with 56,000 young men training for war. There hadn't been time to build enough barracks for all of them. It was the coldest winter on record east of the Rockies, yet many men were sleeping in tents without any heat and only thin blankets. In an effort to keep them all warm, the commander ordered all the men to move into barracks, violating the health and safety rules that dictated how much space each soldier should have. Inside the barracks, men huddled around stoves trying to keep warm. The men from Haskell County must have crowded in close too, even as they began to cough and sneeze. That's all it took. In the overcrowded barracks, the flu spread rapidly. It only took 6 days for the outbreak to begin. The men from Haskell County arrived on February 28th. Less than 1 week later, men began flooding into sick call. Within just a few weeks, the flu swept across the base, sickening thousands and killing between 38 and 50. It was a high death rate for the flu, but it was nothing compared to what was coming next. The virus was about to mutate and become much, much worse. Flu viruses are constantly mutating, and sometimes there will be a really big shift, or a virus that usually affects only animals mutates so it can infect people too. When that happens, it can be very deadly. The flu comes in waves. That's why we have a flu season. Although it may seem like a bad flu is done, the flu can hide for a while, or go infect people in a different part of the world and then return even worse. In the case of the 1918 flu, 3 waves of flu devastated the world. The first wave wasn't too bad, but the second and third waves were extremely dangerous. The outbreak at Camp Funston came just at the end of the flu season in the United States, so the first wave infected a lot of people, but then faded away. The military wasn't worried. They were grappling with a far more deadly outbreak of measles at the time. The flu virus seemed to fade away, but really it just went abroad to take on a world at war. It stalked into camp when the day was damp and chilly and cold, with a hand that was clammy and bony and bold, and its breath was icy and moldy and dank, and it killed so speedy and gloatingly greedy that it took away men from each company rank. The flu, Private Josh Lee, 1919.
See, See what I mean? The Democrat commies are warning Americans what is next. That is why we must return to local state control, where people must be sponsored by senators and jobs and churches or whatever in that one sovereign state. And then we got to investigate the counterfeit citizenship that the Summer Act of '65 brought us. Because the Constitution does not allow this type of immigration. It's wrong. And that is why we're in the shape we're in now, because I don't believe that this could happen under local control, because everybody gets vetted. And then states don't want to have a whole lot of people no way, because under the Constitution, all welfare must be paid by the states until they get through the vetting process of the state and get registered as a legal resident of the state. The federal government not supposed to be getting this money. They're paying them to come here and lower the wages of the American citizens and displace them and disinherit them, as you heard me say. You heard me say that over and over again, that this is what is going on, been going on since 1965. It is just high time that people wake up, darn it, because you will be sleeping forever, listening to the Democrats and not bringing control of immigration back to the local people. As long as the federal government's in charge and paying them billions of dollars a year to come here and mess with you, that's what's going to continue. So, my job is being, even if I'm not elected, I'm the cleanup woman anyway. You guys know I can do with Congress and get a whole lot of stuff done. This time, I'm trying to come as an elected official so I can just actually reach over there and slap somebody. So I'm the cleanup woman. And this leads me right to another thing. I want to give a tribute today to Betty Wright. You know, you remember Betty Wright, the cleanup woman, and no pain, no gain, and she was a great singer. I really, really, really enjoyed her as not only as a singer, but she was the backbone behind a whole lot of the singers that y'all think you like Beyonce and J-Lo and Kelly Rowland and all that stuff. More than that, she trained those people, but they never gave her any credit until now. I want to give her some credit. Roll that clip. Betty Wright, cleanup woman. Hey, people, wasn't she bad? Oh, man, the clean up. Oh, I love her. That's where I am. And that's why I had to give a tribute to her. Because I've always been the clean-up woman of the Constitution. I come in and sweep all this stupid political mess up under the rug somewhere and then burn the rug. And that's why I'm a candidate now for District 18, because I was running for Congress, but you know what I think? I think it's better to clean your own house. We need to clean up Michigan. We got to do some auto insurance reform. We got to do some constitutional immigration reform, job training on the new welfare reform, and immigration reform. We got to return education to Michigan power. We got to get waivers from the federal legislation that do all this stuff that's not in the Constitution. And we got to turn constitutional classes right back to elementary school like it was when I was little. And, we got tax reparations coming too. They don't have nothing to do with slavery because you can't do that nowhere. I told you about that in the Constitution. Amendment 14, Section 4 doesn't allow slave reparations. But we got some more money coming. Don't worry about that one. We got tax reparations coming. And we'll talk about it on another show. Maybe somebody give me a call or send me an email. And, we got to reform the election laws. The way the law is now, I know a lot of you wonder, why only 1 or 2 people run? You got to get 1,000 signatures, and it's terrible. We found out a lot about that this year with the C-19 because people working on campaigns, going person to person, did become afflicted with COVID-19. And then there are disabled people who can't do this. So I'm proposing that they cut down the number of signatures to 500 or a $1,000 filing fee for those who are unable to do even 2 signatures. It's got to be made for everybody to be able to run for Congress. And we got to protect Michigan jobs. Guess what we got to protect it from? Immigrants. You've got companies still hiring Mexicans and anybody else they can get in all forms of work, while Michigan is off work. Oh, no, we got to stop that. They're going to have to register those people, and we're going to have to let them know whether or not they can even bring them. They may have to just train some Americans, and we'll give them a tax rate rather than just take our jobs. And we got to stop these aggressive auto loans. We got to stop them. And we got to stop these aggressive auto repair people. You know, there's a lot of things that we got to do, and we got to stop the Muslim Islam. They get more welfare because one man got 16 wives or whatever, and every one of them get a check. All that's we gotta find a way to slow that roll. So these predator auto loan people and these predator auto repair people. What I mean by predator is they'll have one car, and if a person missed 10 or 15 days, they are allowed to take that car, and then the person has to pay for all these costs. And then after they get the car back, they still want that person to pay the finance charge for something that doesn't exist anymore. Then they sell that car 4 or 5 more times, and everybody that buy it paid finance charges. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, no, we got to stop that. We're going to stop a lot of this mess, and they use the courts to do it. So that means we're going to have some court reform as well. But in the meantime, this is the clean-up woman signing off for today. Feel free to give me a call or send me an email. And just get this last tribute to Betty White. Thank you, Betty White, for all your beautiful melodies that you brought to America. So we will see you next time for show number 3 of Capital City Chris in the House.